you doing today?
Hi, Lauren. Nice to see you.
I just have to say that this is one of my all-time favorite exhibits at the show.
Thank you.
Because, you know, you do such a fantastic job with finding a way to translate the educational aspects to not only people who are already collectors, but to people who might become collectors and finding ways to connect.
Yes.
And this case really does a great job of that.
Thank you.
And I know you were recently on Breakfast with Minerals.
Yes, yeah, we had a really great chat with Breakfast with Minerals. It was part of the Women Collectors segment, and so I talked in that about some of my philosophies of collecting. So I really like to approach the scientific side of things. I like to know how and why things do what they do, how they form, that sort of thing. And so I think pseudomorphs have really tied into that for me because there are so many transitions. Each pseudomorph is telling you a story about different processes and things that have happened within the earth to get you from point A to point B and maybe a couple of steps in between that.
Yeah.
So they tell a story, which I think is really important because it allows you to see things that happen in the earth within a single object.
Exactly. And can we actually talk about a couple of these mineralogical stories?
Yes.
And because they also connect to personal stories too, because you are a serious field collector.
I wouldn't say serious, but I enjoy it.
Well, you've done a lot of it and been very successful, so I'm going to say
I'm
serious.
hoping for bigger successes in the future, but I've had a really good time doing it so far. So.
Well, I'd have to say that one of my favorite pieces in here is this adorable little cutie from the Blanchard mine.
I love that one. So those are a funny incident. I have a soft spot for the altered galenas from the Hansonburg district because they do a lot of really fun things. And the linerite after anglesite/cerussite after galena is a whole interesting argument and debate over whether those even constitute pseudomorphs. I had a great time finding that piece. They've looked at them, and your first transition is from galena to a blend of anglesite and cerussite. So you get kind of, basically it will go to anglesite first, and then your sulfate turns to your carbonate, and you move to cerussite.
Okay.
Then the linerite comes in, and it gets a little bit interesting because they don't typically replace into the crystal structure. It's very superficial, but they take on that form and there is a chemical relationship. So this falls back into where pseudomorphs are not very well defined. You know, in the world of education, the first time I went to put in a pseudomorph display, I was like, oh, this will be easy. I'll just put it together and it'll be great. And I started looking up just some basic definitions to try to give an explanation to the general public of what these things are. And every source I checked had a different definition, and not just a difference of words, but the entire concept of what was being described was completely different. So we have all these terms that we use, and depending on who you talk to, they mean different things. So I think there's a lot of work to be done in really standardizing pseudomorph terminology. I tend to take a very broad view of pseudomorphs. Anything that is showing a false form, in my mind, should constitute as a pseudomorph.
Which is why you've got things like the fossils in here as well.
The fossils, yes, and everybody loves to get real worked up about this one. But the other interesting thing, besides just that you have minerals showing a false form, is the original use of the term pseudomorph was for fossils.
Seriously?
Yes. If you go back to the original use of pseudomorph in Hui's Treaty of Mineralogy, he was describing fossils. Minerals were a secondary concern. So in terms of the precedence of the term, they were originally used for fossils.
And I think there's something kind of beautiful about that because I know you do a tremendous amount of work with MnDAT.
Yes.
And now there's the whole fossil initiative coming into MnDAT as well.
Yes, and I've had some short chats with Jolien about starting to address pseudomorphs because that is a direction that we need to go. And the fossil thing is a great example. If you need to look at the relationship of fossils to minerals, you need to understand, is this a cast? Is this a mineral replacement? What exactly is happening there? And when you start to tie into what they're doing with some of the big data projects, understanding the chemistry and what happened in each individual deposit is essential. Just to say that you have quartz after calcite doesn't necessarily mean anything if you don't know how it got there.
Thank you so much for putting in blood, sweat, and tears.